Hello, so welcome to the stream. This one's going to be sort of a theme stream, so please don't keep asking off-topic questions. And as the title of the stream implies, it's sort of all stuff that you can legally have in the UK for self-defense, self-protection, that sort of thing. So I did a community announcement about this one earlier. Also, don't forget to like the stream, and I'll say this at the beginning before I do the other bits so I don't forget, because I always forget to say about this. If you want to support me, you can either do a super chat on the side, you can donate on Patreon, there's a Patreon link below, or you can buy the Teespring merch, and I get a little bit of profit from any of the merch people buy on there. So that's that out of the way with. So yeah, keep it legal, obviously, in the stream. All right, Richard? All right, Peach? And Mike's on as well, that's good. So hello to everybody. So basically, this stream, as the name implies, is you need to keep it legal, but all about things you can legally own for sort of self-defense, self-protection. So we're not going to talk about weapons in this, obviously. They're in the background, but this is all stuff like if you're out and about, sort of EDC kind of stuff. That's why I got the stab vest on for this, because these are lightweight and comfortable, and a lot of people don't believe me when I say that, but these are the ones that are designed to be worn by police or security for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. They don't weigh very much, and you can get some that are a lot more covert than this, so they'd fit under clothing. Well, tasers are illegal in the UK, guys, so you can't own them. So no talking about that. Stun guns and tasers are Section 5 firearms. Yeah, very good point, Richard. Especially those defensive umbrellas. Like, what's the one called that Mike's got? That you did the review on. Is it Security Umbrella? They're really good. Yeah, and tactical pens. But yeah, the security umbrellas are really good because they're the ones where you've obviously got an umbrella that's made to really, really strong standards, and it functions as an umbrella. Security umbrella, yeah, that's it. But yeah, walking sticks as well, especially if you get a decent quality wooden walking stick. Again, although nobody could really say anything to you if you're using a walking stick, I think it might look a bit odd if somebody in their 20s or something had a walking stick on them. Pepper spray is illegal in the UK. It's considered, again, a Section 5 firearm, same as tasers. So police are allowed them, civilians aren't. Again, that would be illegal, Lena, so we're not going to, as I said, talk about stuff. If people keep mentioning illegal stuff, they'll get a timeout. If they bring it up again, they'll get blocked, just because this is going to obviously be complying with the law. People can ask if certain things are legal or not. Obviously, don't say something like just carry a knife on you or whatever else. Yeah, if it's got the plates, well, not the plates, the Kevlar filler in it, Zach, very good. This one was around £40 to £50. I can't remember the exact price. There's different models available, just to show you so you can see a bit more what it looks like. It's one of these. But yeah, £45 for a second-hand one of these vests, as long as it's all in good condition and it's got the front and back panel. That's a very good price. Yep, I've got a metal water bottle. I don't carry it around on me very often because if it's not full and it does that and the water slooshes around in it, they irritate me. But yeah, if you needed to, you could obviously use that like a bat. Yeah, I've never had any issues, Daniel, with the police, but I don't think I've ever had the police stop me before at all. Because in general, you don't see many police on the streets around here, especially not in the more rural area I live. And I never really do anything suspicious. Yeah, alarm whistles, rape alarms, all those things are perfectly legal. And they're quite good, as people have said before. Mike's Weapon Collector's done some very good videos on these. I doubt a weighted hat would count as an offensive weapon. You could also have things like, I want to try and answer the comments in order and not keep going off on a tangent when I read other comments, but you can have things like bump caps. I would have got my bump cap out for the stream, but it's in my car boot. so I didn't want to go out to the car and get it before the stream started. But bump caps, where you get like a regular cap, but they've got like a hard plastic and foam bit inside, so it gives your head more protection than no like protective gear, but not the same level as a hard hat. The thing is, Maxim, how the UK law works, and I said Weapon Collector's done quite a few good videos on stuff that's UK legal, but it doesn't mean you can necessarily use it, because our laws are a bit strange. If you carry anything on you for the purpose of self-defense, that's illegal. But if you had something on you that you had a good reason to have on you, and then you were attacked and you used that in self-defense, that's a totally different thing. I know that might sound a bit strange, but hopefully that makes sense. But it's one of those things, I don't know how easy it would be to explain, but hopefully people sort of get what I mean. Like that. Avon, in this stream, I'm not answering things on gas masks because it's not relevant. It's a theme stream. It's a hard one, Zeppelin, because obviously a lot of that comes down to what they call reasonable force or justifiable force. So basically, it ends up being like you can't. Again, it might depend if the police even wanted to bother charging you, and then what a jury thought of it. But it basically means you can't go above and beyond what somebody's doing to you. So if somebody unarmed broke into your house, and you beat them up with your fists, that probably wouldn't be a problem. And maybe if you used something to hand, like a small bat or something, that might not be an issue. Obviously, if you then used a bow and arrow or a crossbow on somebody like that, that would be a bit overkill. So then that would be where... I'm assuming a weighted coat or bag is absolutely fine, because there's lots of things like that that have weight to them. Is the pocket shark like a tactical pen? Is that the cold steel one? That would be perfectly legal. So I've got a tactical pen. I carry this pretty much on me every day, just simply because it's a very good pen underneath. But again, because it's got the glass breaker on the bottom and it's full stainless steel, if you did get attacked, you could actually hit with this pretty hard, and you can break a window in a car if you're in a car crash or anything like that. If it locks greater, it's technically not legal, but again, it really depends, because if you have a justifiable reason for having the knife on you, then it doesn't matter anyway. But then there's also lots of questions like open owls. Now, I think this is the one that's too long a blade to be UK legal to carry anyway. But like the locking collar on open owl, I've heard some people say that isn't a lock knife, and others say it is. So again, something like an open owl, you'd probably be more, have a bit more protection with it in the eyes of the law than a straightforward, knife like this that locks, like that. But again, it's still technically a lock knife. Again, it gets quite complicated because I'm not a legislator, and a lot of these things can really vary when they come to a court thing. If you use it for work, basically, Zach, or you're going out and doing something that you need a knife for, obviously stabbing people is not a good reason to have a knife. But so say you have a job where you need to cut things with a knife, like packaging or anything like that. That's a good reason to have it. You're a chef, that's a good reason to have it. If you're going out into the woods and you're doing bushcraft kind of stuff, that's a good reason to have a knife. Yeah, torch is a very good guy, because obviously if you have a very bright torch, like a couple of 1,000 lumens plus, and a lot of them are now getting cheaper and cheaper. Like the torch I keep next to my bed, this definitely isn't my best torch. It's nowhere near as good as some of the through night ones, but this has a good solid weight to it. It's got a strobe mode on it. It's quite bright. Obviously I don't want to blind the webcam, but and because it's zoomable, it also means that you can see things at a distance. So again, a torch is a good thing in terms of, you could hit somebody with it if you really needed to, but you could also dazzle them with it, or you can actually use it as a torch. I already answered you, Zeppelin. I'm not going to go through all the stuff about justifiable force and reasonable force again. As long as you're in a country where that's legal, Battle Rat, that's fine. If you're in the UK, you've implicated yourself as breaking the law. So if you're in the UK, delete your comment. If you're not in the UK, that's fine. And I'll just say this for people. If you're in a country that's not the UK, and you've got something that's legal in the UK but not legal here, make sure, sorry, I'm just going to put my phone on aeroplane mode just so I don't keep getting it buzzing and distracting me. Make sure you say, I'm in this country, or I'm not in the UK, or it's legal in my country. Because otherwise, it can get quite dodgy if people, it makes it look like people are implicating themselves in things. Yeah, I'll check that out, John. I've heard a lot of people recommend that, but I've never actually. So is it the Sword Peasant? Let's have a look. Mini Peasant, okay. Oh yeah, Heine Haynes have it. So it folds, does it? But so is it? How does the mechanism work then? Oh, I see. So the tang stops it from closing. A bit like with some of the knives Mike has, although it's done in a slightly different way, where Mike has those San Renmu, I think it is, knives. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? Where if you're holding a knife and it's open, it can't close, but it's not actually a lock. Yeah, I might get one of those. Yeah, I'd probably just get that for doing like odd jobs, John, because it seems like a very good knife for fitting in your pocket that you can just use for stuff like that. Oh, it's a telescopic baton isn't legal in the UK, Avon, but if it's legal in Poland, then that's absolutely fine. Because again, a lot of countries obviously have better self-defense laws than the UK. I'd be very cautious about using a laser just because of the reason that there's so many weird little laws that don't make sense. One thing you need to note about the UK, and this is probably true in a lot of other countries as well, sometimes there's stuff written in law that's very vague, and it isn't until somebody gets done for something and there's a big court case on it, do you find out kind of how the law will fall on it. Right. It will completely depend, Ninja, because like I was saying before, it's the whole thing about reasonable force or justifiable force. Also, don't forget to like the stream, everybody, because at the moment it says there's like twice as many people as likes. So like it or dislike it if you want, but it seems to make YouTube want to share the streams more. So if somebody broke into your house and they were armed, and you felt under serious stress, and then you got the shotgun, and you shot them, it may be all right. Because we've had a lot of cases like that. Sometimes the people are cleared, sometimes it goes to court and they're acquitted. Before you know it gets all the way through court. And then other times, they'll be found guilty. Because say somebody broke into your house and you specifically went out of your way to go and open a gun safe in a different room, get a shotgun, then come back. They might look on it differently than, say, you had the gun safe in your bedroom. Because if it's in your bedroom and you heard somebody breaking windows and getting in, the shotgun's almost two-hand because it's right in the gun safe. Yeah, what Richard said is a very good point. If you're in the UK, don't say, I'm going to, this is probably the same for a lot of other countries, don't say, I would do this. You could say, theoretically, I might, or something like that. But don't say, I would do this, because if you're ever caught in a situation where that happens, somebody could find an old chat log and say it's premeditated. AR-15s that are in 22 long rifle can be owned on a thing, like a gun license. And an AR-15 in 5.56 or 223, if it's had the gas system removed, so you have to charge it every shot, it's still legal as well. But essentially, semi-automatic AR-15s, no. If you illegally own the firearm, you're going to get done, Ninja, just because you have no right to have it in the first place if it's an illegal firearm. And then if you shoot somebody with it, there's been some cases like that, though, as far as I'm aware, where the person's been cleared of like manslaughter or whatever for shooting the person, because they were under threat, but they still get done for a firearms offence. So they still might get prison time for that because they illegally own the gun. No, you can't. It's not illegal to carry a glass bottle in the UK, but again, if it's completely unjustifiable how you used it, that's where it will really depend. Yeah, exactly, Leo. Like, I've got a tactical pen, but yeah, if you had a really good stainless steel, like titanium solid pen, even if it's not a tactical one, it could definitely be better than nothing. Well, you don't get guns that shoot rubber bullets as civilians in the UK. The closest thing I think is getting paintball guns, with like the really hard paintballs. Because again, those are sometimes used by riot police in some countries, and I think you can own those in the UK, but I've never really looked into it. Airsoft, I think you'd be totally all right with. Air rifles, again, it depends because you're still technically shooting somebody, and people do get killed with air rifles as much as they're nowhere near as powerful as real firearms. You're still shooting a lead projectile into somebody. So, again, the whole thing with this is it reasonable force for what's happening? If somebody armed with a machete or a gun is breaking into your house, you can probably do whatever the hell you want. If somebody's just breaking in, essentially with no tools or whatever, and then you pulled out a gun and shot them, you're probably going to be seen as the person who's going to get. I definitely think it should be legally and for stuff like pepper spray. Whether or not the UK would work with firearms, because the point to remember is the UK does not have the US's firearms culture. So if we just said out of, like a thought experiment, firearms like pistols, revolvers and everything were just legalized overnight and anybody could go out to a gun shop and buy them the next day, I think you'd get a lot of really careless random shootings and accidental discharges and all stuff like that, where people don't know, like how to respect a gun properly. Yeah, if it has pepper spray powder in it, it won't be UK legal because, as I said, pepper spray is a Section 5 firearm. But if you had a paintball gun that shoots paintballs or some other kind of hard projectile that's legal to own, you could technically use that, I imagine. And again, I said, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take anything I say as fact. Read up on the laws yourself. Well, I get the point, Jack. Like you're saying, if it's locked in a gun safe, you've gone to unlock the gun safe, haven't you? But there's been cases in court where people have used shotguns and rifles in home invasions and they've been cleared. I think there's a lot of furniture and stuff you could have lying around your house that you could certainly use in self-defense if somebody broke in. Yeah, exactly, John. That's the problem, isn't it? If somebody's ramped up on PCP or whatever, or cocaine or whatever, they're not going to be feeling it, are they? Or even heroin, to be honest, because if somebody's high enough on heroin, but not asleep or whatever, really strong opioids, again, they're not going to feel pain because that's the entire point of opioid pain medication. Well, I was saying with airsoft guns, it depends where you draw the boundary between them going from airsoft to air guns, but I don't think a court would really care if it was 10 or 20 FPS more than a different FPS. Yeah, I think if somebody used something like a chair, I think that wouldn't even barely go to court. One of the things to bear in mind, a lot of the time when there has been cases against homeowners where they have been prosecuted, it's because they've used excessive force. So let's say you were the homeowner, somebody broke into your house, you disarm them, and like you had them on the floor, and then you started kicking them in the head or punching them in the head when they were already down, you might go to prison for that because you're essentially torturing somebody. But if you hit somebody a few times, they went down, and then you just stood guard over them until the police arrived or whatever, then you generally won't get in trouble for that. Well, as I've said before, you can't just simply move to the US. I don't think a lot of Americans realize this. But if you're European and wanted to legally go to the US, you need to have like a visa for a job that's actually wanted in the US. They don't just let anybody in, unfortunately. If you did something like that, memes, they could argue you're trying to make homemade pepper spray, and then they could really do you for it. Well, you could have something like a Bokken flying howl, the same as if you had a cricket bat or a baseball bat, as long as you actually use it for a proper sporting purpose, and it's around in your house, it's kind of to hand. Yeah, there's been cases, Maxim, again, it might come down to a court's decision, but there's been cases where people have done that and they've been completely let off because they were frightened. You know, somebody was going for them with a weapon. They overpower them. I can't speak tonight for some reason. They overpowered them and quickly turned the weapon on them in self-defense, and that was considered justifiable. If you ended up stabbing them over and over and over and over again with a knife you took off them, that would be a bit different. If they came at you with a knife, you know, you hit them and then got them with their own knife, that's totally different. As far as I'm aware, that would be completely legal, Congo, if that's how your name's pronounced, because you can legally own handcuffs as a civilian. Well, as I was saying earlier, I don't want this stream to be a complete circle of can you use this, because a lot of the time the same thing's been repeated. We'll wrap up the bit on home defense now. I've just noticed there's 51 people on, so that's loads of people on this stream, so thanks for that. Don't forget to like it or leave a dislike if you want to while you're on. I'll just throw that out there because a lot of people don't bother liking or disliking the streams, and it means nobody ever watches them later on, because YouTube doesn't share streams very often if people don't like them or dislike them. But anyway, as I was saying, I don't want the stream to go in circles because it's been on 20 minutes now, and for like the last 15 minutes or so, a lot of it has been, what can I use in my house if somebody breaks in? And we just keep repeating the same points. So yeah, it'd be better if we could go back to stuff you can carry on you every day, stuff like that. All right, see you, Zach. Thanks anyway. No, tasers, the police can have them, Marcus, and there's a big thing now because police get attacked a lot in the UK, and it's getting worse with like a lot of the violent crime. There's a lot of stuff now where they're saying should every single cop carry a taser, because at the moment a lot do, but not all of them. But civilians can't own tasers. There might be some caveats to that, because I know sometimes for certain job roles in private security sort of things, you are allowed more stuff than a regular civilian can own. But in terms of stuff like tasers, no, civilians can't own them. They're called Section 5 firearms. Both stun guns and tasers fall under that. Well, again, nuclear winter, I think it completely comes down to, do you have a legal reason for having it on you? Or a sensible reason? Because this is the thing, is a lot of people say, can you use this, can you use that? But would you every day just walk around with a claw hammer in your pocket? I think most people wouldn't. Now, if you were some sort of handyman, you had a tool belt, then it might be justifiable. But if you just walked around with a hammer in a coat pocket, you're asking for trouble, aren't you? Because no normal person would just say, I'm going to carry a claw hammer wherever I go. The same reason you wouldn't just walk around with a machete on you. Cattle prods are a really weird one because it's one where the law is really fuzzy on. I'd say no, they're not legal, but there's a lot of people that have made good arguments they are legal. And I guess, like I said, until somebody goes to court over a cattle prod kind of thing, who knows? Because the law specifically, I think, says stun guns and tasers, not cattle prods. Yeah, but would you still have a reason for having them in a backpack? Do you know what I mean? Like, again, in a backpack, it doesn't seem as bad as if you had a hammer in your pocket. But again, it still seems a bit strange to me that somebody might just randomly walk around in their rucksack with like a claw hammer and stuff like that. To be honest, John, yeah, Brian can have a shout out if he wants, Davey. But I tend not to try and do shout outs on this, otherwise you get loads of people asking for shout outs and it goes completely off topic. In theory, John, if you had a can of deodorant on you, and there is a good reason for carrying deodorant, because a lot of people can be sweaty bastards, or if, you know, you work long hours, you might want a can of deodorant to freshen up a lot. I think you just spraying somebody in the face with a can of deodorant with some of them would be enough to, you know, temporarily blind them and cause quite a lot of pain. Not that I'd suggest, you know, doing it. Yeah, that sounds like a similar thing, Bimpy, because I think the logic is in the UK that there's lots of farmers that may have a good reason to have cattle prods. You know, it's like part of their job. So that's why the legislation on them's a lot less kind of weighty. It's the same reason that shotguns are fairly easy to get in the UK if you really want to get one, because there's lots of land owning or like land protection reasons you might want a shotgun. You know, farmers because of like threats to their animals and all that sort of stuff. Again, the law can be a bit weird like that because what we also get in the UK is lots of knee-jerk laws where something is legal and something isn't for no valid reason. It's only because a politician's made a fuss about something at some point. Motorcycle gloves are a good choice, especially if it's cold. What I've got, and these would be perfectly justifiable in the cold, is those public order riot glove things, which are basically hand protective gloves and they keep your hands really warm, but they're really, you know, like solid high quality gloves that would give you protection from somebody attacking you with a knife or, you know, throwing acid or something at your hands. But also if you punch somebody, it's like a weighted glove. So again, there's lots of things like that. If it's a really hot day in the summer, it would look really weird if somebody's walking around with giant kind of gauntlet gloves on. But if it's the winter, again, you've got a justifiable reason because it's cold. Well, this has been brought up a load of times. History again, an airsoft weapon, if it was in your own home, I think it would be very unlikely you get prosecuted for that if somebody broke in, just simply because an airsoft gun is, under most UK things other than the VCRA stuff, a toy. Again, the good thing is with an airsoft gun, if you had like a realistic looking one, I guess you might be able to get somebody to surrender or run away if you pointed at them and they thought you had an actual live firearm. The only thing I've said before is I would not want, in a situation somebody was coming at me with a knife, to rely on an airsoft gun to try and stop them. Because even if you've got one that's quite a high feet per second, you know, rate of fire, you know, decent rate of fire, and it shoots the pellets or the BBs at a decent velocity, I think most people, if they were charging at you with a knife, would probably stab you a few times before they even realise it's hurt them. Well, I've done a video on that, Mike, that upset a lot of people. No, I've just been giving people sensible advice and telling people not to do stupid stuff in this stream. But going back to what Mike said, I did a video that upset a lot of airsofters where I demonstrated. I got Bart to shoot me a load of times when I walked towards him with a machete. The only thing I had on was goggles, you know, just so a BB didn't go in my eye. And it was with an airsoft gun that shoots like 350 FPS, you know, like the sort of fire, you know, velocity that most people who use airsoft for airsoft matches would have them, you know. And, you know, it stings slightly, but that's it. It would not stop somebody attacking you. And then it was full of whinging people in the comments saying, yeah, but my airsoft gun shoots at 800 feet per second. Well, under the law, in most countries, it's not an airsoft gun at that point. It's an air gun, which is a totally different thing. And they were saying all these theoretical things, you know, like, yeah, but if you shot them directly in the eyeball, yeah, but if somebody's attacking you in your house in the middle of the night, you're not going to be able to perfectly line shots up for their eyes, are you? Yeah, I've got some gloves like that are quite comfy, Congo. And yeah, again, sometimes I do just wear them in the winter when it's slightly cold because they keep my hands warm and they're nice protective gloves. All right, sorry for the person spamming the chat. You can. Oh, Mike's already dealt with it. Thank you. I was going to give him a timeout, but never mind. He's gone now. That's interesting, but I suppose putting people through psychological tests for a firearm does make sense, doesn't it? Because you probably don't want somebody who's totally nuts to own a gun. The only thing you can say, you know, the other way of that is it restricts liberties in the sense that You don't ever want it to be that, you know, for somebody's political beliefs, they might say they're crazy, therefore they can't have an airsoft gun. Or not airsoft gun, sorry, like a gun. And I don't think it's a good idea, like we said in the US before, to put lots of these laws in because the US has the Second Amendment. But in lots of other countries that don't have the US Second Amendment, I think if you do have legal firearms, you do need lots of checks and balances in place. Yeah, exactly, Peach. I've only got leggings on at the moment, long johns, but again, these are the sort of belts I normally wear on my trousers, and again, that's like a solid big steel buckle, and you can get belts with even bigger buckles than this. So yeah, if you really needed to, I guess you could wrap that, couldn't you, around your hand. Again, not that I'm suggesting anybody did it, but you know, you could and then hit with that. But you know, that's the thing. Also, this isn't going to be the theme of the stream because obviously it's a thing, but my ROU came today. It was damaged, but I've managed to repair it. Basically, the plastic there had snapped on one of the lenses, and when the lenses are totally fallen out, so I had to basically just glue it back together. I doubt it's going to be airtight, but I can at least show it in videos. That's one of the modern Russian ones, the ROU. To be honest, I think a lot of things with imitation firearms, it does make sense that the person's 18. That way you're not going to get a kid, in theory, shot by the armed police for running around with a fake gun doing stupid shit. Yeah, I don't know how effective it will be whipping, but I imagine wrapping it round your hand, the leather might protect you from somebody slashing at your hand with a knife, and the buckle adds a bit more weight if you were to punch them. And again, I'm not recommending anybody does that, for obvious reasons, but it's just one of those interesting things to think about. Yeah, there's lots of things like that, nuclear winter, that work well. And again, stuff like that is completely legal in the UK because nobody can say anything about you having a chain with keys on, because a lot of people just do that. Yeah, exactly. It's an item you have on you. Well, I don't think most people carry around gas masks and filters on them, memes. But yeah, in theory, if you did EDC a gas mask with you, you could smack somebody with a filter. An old metal or plastic filter that's quite weighty is essentially like hitting somebody with a club. Still my C7's potato masher, but again, this isn't a gas mask stream. It's a thing about UK legal things. Also, thank you. The amount of likes in my top corner has gone above the amount of viewers now, so that's really good. So thanks, everybody. I'll also shout this out again before I forget, because people keep telling me I never mention it enough. If you want to support my channel, you can donate via Super Chats, you can donate via Patreon, there's a link below, or you can buy the merchandise, such as the hoodies, the t-shirts, the mugs. There you go. I'm not going to wear that today because it's too warm, but, you know, but I will actually quickly demonstrate something to you, and I get a bit of money from that. But don't forget to like the stream anyway if you're watching, because that does help out. But yeah, what you can do is just showing with this stuff, because like body armor is totally defensive. Nobody can say it's illegal to have body armor, although some countries trying to do that for some reason. Even the UK isn't that draconian. But the nice thing with this body armor is, just to demonstrate this, even though I've not technically got a covert vest, it does fit under a lot of jackets. So there you go. Again, some people might be able to see you've got it on you, but a lot of people, unless they knew your general shape, wouldn't necessarily know you've got body armor under that, especially if it's a more covert vest than this one, you know, with less bits that stick out, that's more slimline. So that was just something, you know, to consider. That you know, because the silly thing I hear a lot when people talk about these body armors is they say there's no way you can get body armor that can ever be worn under clothing ever, and that's just completely false. Especially if it's autumn or winter, when it's actually pretty chilly out or cold, you can definitely fit covert body armor vests under a coat, and if it's a padded enough coat, nobody's ever going to know. Yeah, thanks, Mike, for pointing that out. Like I said to people the other day, if you didn't catch it on the stream, because I had like a 2 or 3 month ban amnesty, it was quite a while. I did unban a lot of people who'd been banned. Sometimes it was just because I was in a bad mood on the stream and all stuff like that, if they were acting weird. But because I've had a lot of people genuinely trolling and stuff again in the comments, it's just gotten to the stage now where if you're blocked, you're blocked. Might do, Lena. Weapon Collector, as I said, has done some very good videos, and he's in the chat now there. Look, Weapon Collector. I don't know if my finger's next to his name at the moment, but it is on my screen. With Weapon Collector, he's done loads of really good videos if you're interested in all sorts of, like, you know, where he's covered a table and all sorts of things you can legally carry on you in the UK that could be used if you needed to in a self-defense situation. In theory, memes and strategy, I guess so. But, I mean, they wouldn't have a live firing rifle, would they, at least in the UK? But I suppose they might bayonet somebody. Yeah, if you have a bike, Leo, that would be fine. I don't ride a bike anymore, so I don't even, you know, own one anymore. But again, for people who do own bikes, lots of bike locks are really good. Saying that, there are bike locks that are quite useful even if you don't have a bike, just for some sort of, you know, like securing stuff. It's a good idea, Congo. I've never done it myself because I'm shit at sewing and all stuff like that. But I've done some videos on improvised, really cheap homemade armor where you can get a load of bits of newspaper, put them in a coat, and they actually become stab-proof or very stab-resistant. You know, so you can make really cheap body armor that way. But I'm not skilled enough to, like, sew stuff together very well. But again, there's lots of things you can do even if you can't easily buy proper, you know, like ex-police or brand new stab-proof or stab-resistant or bullet-resistant vests. There are lots of ways you can make something that will give you a lot more protection than regular clothing quite easily. Yeah, I mean, like you're saying with the sort of fleeces and that, even with this hoodie, it's got one of those kangaroo pouches at the bottom where, you know, it's like a pocket that goes through the middle. I don't know how well it will show up on the stream with the colours. Let me put my hand through it so you can see. So at the bottom of the fleece, like this one, and I've seen like the hoodie, see there's like a pouch that goes all the way through. So if you had a hoodie in theory that had a much bigger one of those pouches, or one that was like all over the front, maybe one that, you know, opens at the top, because I've seen some like that, almost like a plate carrier shape. I reckon, yeah, you could definitely put something in there that would act as yeah, we were on about them earlier, Leo, because Weapon Collector's got one. He was sent one for free to do some videos on. And they do look really good. I mean, I probably wouldn't pay the amount of money they cost, but I do think they're bloody good for what they are. But it'd be good if a few more companies made similar products, and, you know, maybe the price of those would go down a bit. That's very interesting, Samik. I do have like an entire car, you know, wheel replacing kit and all that in the boot, Ian. But the best thing I've got in my car, and these are completely legal to have in your car because it's a safety thing, is in my driver's side door, where it's always in reach of my hand. Because, you know, you've got like the driver's door alcove on most cars. I've got one of those things that's like a glass breaker, but it's like, you know, it's like handle in that. It's like the ones you have on, you see them on coaches and buses sometimes, in like the cases in case the bus crashes. So it's like a big metal kind of, almost like a hammer, but it's a glass breaker on it. And it's also got a seatbelt cutter blade on it and all those things. And again, that's in there because, you know, if I was in a car crash, you can break a window and get out, you know, even if the car was crumpled. Yeah, it's those things, Ian. But again, something like that, if somebody did get road rage and attacked you, right to hand there, you've got something that if you hit somebody in the head with them, it would do a lot of damage. Well, sadly not, see, I get lots and lots of comments from people saying there's no need to have a stab-proof vest because it's illegal for people to carry a knife, so they can't stab you in the first place. I also have had people say things like, you could only be stabbed by a blade that's 3 inches or under because people can't legally carry blades bigger than that. Yeah, here's the thing. I don't think people who go around stabbing each other over drugs and stuff like that give a shit at all about what they are legally and not legally allowed to carry. From what I've heard, Jack, I have never done it. I used to do a bit of judo when I was younger, but I did that for like a few years, not very long. But in Krav Maga, from what I've heard, it's one of those, or Krav Maga, however it's pronounced, it's one of those things where if you're good at it, it's better than nothing. But, you know, you still need to be really careful because apparently there's a lot of people, even if they're good at it, can get overconfident and think if somebody's attacking them with a knife or a machete, they'll be fine because they know this martial art. And again, they'll be better than somebody without that martial art, but it can give somebody false confidence. And you can find a lot of videos online where you can get somebody very skilled in like martial arts and fighting, but they end up getting killed or severely wounded because they end up fighting like too many people, you know, rather than running away, or people who are armed with knives and a machete and somebody just lands a hit on them, you know, and you can't fight when your tendons have been cut. Never heard of that, Mr. Sutherland. Yeah. Exactly, Bimpy. It's annoying for me, the amount of comments I get on any videos to do with body armor, where people are saying, like, you must be some paranoid lunatic to need that, even though I don't wear this every day. I'm only wearing it at the moment because it's a stream. Thankfully, with my current job, I do not need it at all. Like, 7 days a week, I never need to wear this vest now. With my old job, when it was in the city and there were lots of heroin addicts and, you know, all those junkies on the streets, you did need it because people would get mugged and beaten up for money, you know, or whatever, robbed. You know, now and again, there were like gangs stabbing each other or, you know, whatever. It wasn't, you know, like London or Manchester levels of bad. But, you know, if you'd been working late at night for a few times, you would know that, you know, you could be at serious risk of being attacked, you know, by people that were drug addicts and everything. I'm not in London, bad man. I'm in Oxford, but Oxford city centre can be a bit of a shithole at times. But yeah, exactly. It's delusional, isn't it, Mr. Sutherland, the people that go like that? Because, you know, I've got loads of people saying, there was one guy, right? I can remember his comment. I blocked him. Let me finish my cup of tea before it gets cold, because cold tea is horrible. Right, so what he said was, like, you're a paranoid freak show or something like that. I bet you'll be in prison soon because nobody needs a stab-proof vest, and wearing one shows that you're going to go out and hurt somebody. Yeah, exactly. Lots of big cities, the issue is as soon as you've got a big city, you end up getting quite a lot of drug addicts and things that congregate around to beg for money and everything else. Yeah, normally I have my branded mugs, but this is just one that's a Fort Park mug with my name on it, even though I've not been to Fort Park for like 10 plus years. And the mug isn't that old. I think it must have been when one of my relatives went. They just bought a mug with my name on it and gave it to me. Yeah, it might be, Guy. I don't know. It's perfectly legal to carry knives under 3 inches that don't lock. So a Swiss Army knife you can carry without an excuse to even have it on you. Because it's a blade under 3 inches and it doesn't lock. It's a slip joint. So that's perfectly legal. If I was to have a knife like this one, which is a lock knife, if a lock knife is under 3 inches or over 3 inches, regardless, because it's a lock knife, you have to have a reason for carrying it. Yeah, exactly, Congo. That's what he said, wasn't it? Well, I don't carry a knife normally on me most of the time. Like, when I'm out and about, a lot of the time I don't even have a Swiss Army knife on me. But if I do, it's because it's got the bottle opener on it. Let me just get that bit out. It's got a bottle opener there. It's got a flathead screwdriver on the same bit. This one's also got a Phillips screwdriver. So I actually have reasons for using it because, you know, screwdrivers come in handy. When I've got a proper lock knife on me, that is because I'm using it for work when I'm going out volunteering and stuff like that. Like when I'm at the animal shelter, I generally always take a lock knife on me because I'm less likely to slip and cut my hands. The animal shelter is private property anyway, So when I'm there, you know, it's not like I'm in the street carrying a knife, but commuting to and from there, if I ever was pulled over driving and they asked me about the knife, it's because I'm going to a job where I need it. So, you know, the law says that's okay. And then they have to make a case against you if they don't think that's true. Well, I do a couple of things, Ian. Part of my job's YouTube. Part of my job as well is doing the kitchen porter job at the weekends. I also volunteer at Animal Shelter on Thursdays as like charity volunteer work. Well, again, we're going back, Guy, to the thing we've said over and over again on the stream. It depends what sort of situation. And if you carry anything for the purpose of self-defense, it's not legal. If you have something on you because you've got a justifiable reason to have it, or somebody breaks into your house, and, you know, then it's reasonable force for whatever they're doing, then it may be legal. But simply saying, is this weapon legal? Who knows? Yeah, cheers, David. I just like animals. I've got rid of Nazi now just because he's been putting loads of stupid messages on all stream, and Mike did warn him earlier, so oh well. Yeah, exactly. Swiss Army knives and multi-tools, the only thing you have to be careful of in the UK is if you get a multi-tool, you know, make sure it doesn't have a lock knife on it, just for the reasons above, you know, for EDC. But again, if it is part of a multi-tool, again, you're going to be a lot more covered. But again, multi-tools and Swiss Army knives are very practical. And again, I've had loads of practical uses for one of these as well as a Swiss Army knife. And again, something like this, you can have in that, you can have it on a belt, you know, nice and convenient. No, I'd never do a drunk stream on purpose, and I don't drink all that often. And again, how much would I need to drink to get drunk? Who knows? No, butterfly knives were made completely illegal in the UK. They were banned in kind of two stages. Initially, when they did that stupid ban of all the things that were like Oriental or ninja weapons, when the UK, like some of the politicians had a fit over that and got scared of the ninjas, they banned butterfly knives in that craze at one point. But they were banned they were banned for sale, but if you owned one, that was fine, but you couldn't sell it to anybody, you know, and you couldn't buy it from anybody else, sort of thing. And then recently they redid the offensive weapons list, and it's now illegal to own all that sort of stuff. With a vest on or without a vest on. When I used to do push-ups and stuff regularly, David, I could do 50 in a row. But probably by the end of that, the quality of the push-ups was going down a bit, but I'd say easily 30. If I wore like a vest or a heavier vest than this, less. But with a lot of the stuff I've had with my UC, I tend to be quite careful what exercises I do now, just because, again, I need to be careful not to aggravate certain things. And where I had the back that got fucked a couple of years ago. Sometimes when I do weights again now, I end up really hurting my back for a period. So sometimes I just need to be really careful with what I do then. A Stanley knife is weird. I wouldn't really, unless you were a builder or somebody who did maintenance work, I would not recommend you, you know, carry a, in the UK at least, a Stanley knife on you. But there are a lot of people who are like do tradesman jobs who carry Stanley knives, and it's completely okay. And there's also, you know, the stupid police things where they end up wasting somebody's time and then release them without charge. Just, you know, due to the things of pulling somebody who obviously had a Stanley knife in for a, you know, no good reason. All right, Glow in the Dark. Glow in the Dark's an ex-policeman, if he doesn't mind me saying, so he's somebody who might be able to contribute a lot to this chat. But as we were saying in this stream, it's all totally legal stuff, because obviously I've been having to already explain to a lot of people that it's a stupid idea just to carry around a weapon in your pocket in the chance of, oh, but I did have a justifiable reason for it. Yeah, exactly. If you worked in a warehouse, Although the annoying thing is, in my old job, I did used to work in a warehouse, but it was company policy that we weren't allowed to bring knives in. We had to use these really crappy plastic cutters things. They were like box cutters, but when Americans say box cutters, they mean a Stanley knife. These were these actual patented box cutter things that were designed so you couldn't get your hand near the blade. And they were really, really impractical, and we never used them. We ended up opening all the packaging with pens. So like you'd either, with a tactical pen, you'd obviously use this end, but with a regular pen, you could use that end. And then we'd just pierce the pen into the stuff and then do that to break it open. Because, again, the company's like, oh, you can't use knives. Can't bring knives in. Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm thinking of, Ian. But yeah, it kind of looked like a... The easiest way of describing it is, say you've got a lighter like one of these. Obviously bigger than this, but that kind of shape. And then at one end, it's kind of got a triangle cut out of it. And then it's got like a blade part way in there where, you can push it into things to cut them, but you can't actually ever use it. Well, I think working at the animal shelter is like the most interesting job kind of thing, but that's voluntary work. It's not. Obviously, YouTube's quite a fun thing to do as a job. Again, if you had a reason for carrying random stationery around on you, then sure, but it'd be very odd if you walked around with a ruler without a pen or a pencil, wouldn't it? I've got a yardstick on me. Why do you have a yardstick on you? In case I want to measure something. I don't know. Not stupid, Leo, but I suppose at least you can get your parents to buy it, can't you, or something like that, or a guardian or something like that. But there's lots of dumb things like that. Where I was chatting with somebody at the animal shelter today, and they were saying like they've recently moved to a new address, and there's something like to do with a parking space where they can't use the parking space until they've got some proof of address, but that proof of address is going to take ages to come through. So it's like a circle of them not allowed to park outside and get a permit for parking outside their own house. It's stupid. Yeah, that was an interesting thing, Mike, because you did a video, didn't you, on that? And we were all kind of things, but there wasn't enough info, was there? Because if he got in a fight or something, you could understand why the police might get, a bit funny with him for having a knife on him. But if it's a regular workman, then surely they're wasting everybody's time. Yep, definitely glow in the dark. I still wear steel toe caps to my current job, but that's again because you can drop stuff on your foot quite easily. But when I used to work in the warehouse, it was almost required to have steel toe caps. And again, I felt a lot safer with those on because you thought if you did have to kick somebody and run, if they tried to mug you or something, kicking somebody in the shin or the balls with a steel toe cap on is going to stun them and hurt them for longer than not having it. And as well, if somebody tries to stamp on your foot, a steel toe cap's going to protect you from that. Right, the one I've got is really good, Nuclear Winter, and Weapon Collector's got one of these, but sadly, I don't think they make them anymore. At least GearBest don't sell them. I think this was spelled F-U-R-A, like Führer or something, but not Führer as in Adolf Hitler. Like F-U-R-A, so like Führer, I don't know, whatever. But these were good. They don't really have model names. They're all called tactical pens, and they all just look different. But this is a good one because it's a tungsten carbide tip, and it's a very good pen. And I like the fact it's a screw top one. You get some which are like, the bolt action ones or the clicky ones, but again, they might break a bit easier. But the thing I like with this one, it's a pretty slimline one. Look, because if I put it on here, as you can see, it's pretty much a normal pen. And a lot of the people, when they ask to borrow my pen at work, they don't even realise there's a glass breaker at that end unless they try and write with it, and then they go, your pen's not working, like, you need to take the lid off, it's that end. And they're like, oh, it's a nice pen. But very few people have gone, oh, that looks like a weapon. Actually, I don't think anybody said that. Yeah, again, Jack, it depends what country you're in. The thing is, if you had like a proper work kit, like a workman's tool bag, I think a Stanley knife wouldn't be as suspicious. But personally, if I had the option of like EDCing a knife on me, you know, between something like this and the Stanley knife, I would still feel more justified in carrying this and then explaining it as, you know, I need it for my job. Whereas with a Stanley knife, I don't know, I don't know if it's like one of those things where there was pressure on the police for a while to like crack down on Stanley knives more than other knives. I really don't know. You can own swords, as you can see in the background. Swords in the UK, perfectly legal to own in your own home. You can't exactly walk around with them, you know, brandishing one on the street. People for like Sikhs and that for religious things are allowed swords and things like that. But pretty much it's like all the other bladed stuff laws, you know, in your house it's perfectly legal. You know, if you stab somebody with your sword, even if they broke into your house, then again, all the other rules apply. But in terms of owning swords, practicing swords, doing martial arts with swords, all that's perfectly legal. The only thing that does vary a bit with swords is that there are some rules on certain types of swords, and things like katanas made to very cheap crap quality. Because most of the laws on swords are basically so the minimum price has to be a certain amount, just so it deters, you know, like chavs and like lowlifes from just wanting to buy swords to stab each other. Well, not really related to the stream, David, but the Lee Enfield, there's one up there just because it had the 10-shot magazine rather than the 5-shot magazine, like a lot of the other bolt actions. It had a really fast bolt and British bias, because obviously I'm English. I can never tell sometimes, Congo, if some of those pictures are jokes or not. Because I've seen some things, these weapon sweeps, where there's like bloody butter knives on there and teaspoons, like you said. But I don't know if sometimes it's just they've cleared up every single tool or whatever they found in like a council estate, you know, like hidden hedgerows and things like that, and they're just in there along with everything else. Yeah, as you were saying, Mike, the thing is, like I said, I've never been stopped by a cop because I don't go around acting suspiciously. You know, that's the thing. And I'm not saying everybody gets stopped by a cop is acting suspiciously or anything, but again, you're not going to be stopped and searched or anything, are you? Unless they have probably reason to suspect you in the first place. As far as I'm aware, BIMP used to stand for Council Housed and Violent, but basically it's, you know, like what Gopniks are in the Soviet Union or Russia. It's kind of, you know, our thing like that. Very good, Murray. Unfortunately, because you have no option now but to get computers with Windows 10 on, unless you're going for a Linux or a Ubuntu or anything like that, or a Mac, I have to put up with all the Windows 10 bullshit. But in terms of the performance of it, it's brilliant. It's just that I keep running into errors I never had on my Windows 7 PC, because Windows 10 is just not as good as Windows 7. But yeah, so in theory, Richard, could you own a scimitar and a killage and things like that, as long as they were made to, you know, they were properly forged? I assume by that, how that's worded, you can, can't you? At the moment, Ian, I've got an AMD Ryzen 3900X, so the best CPU on the market until the Ryzen Threadrippers come out, but I'm not going to upgrade this machine anytime soon. A AMD RX, is it 5700 XT? It might not even have the RX bit in, but 5700 XT is a GPU, which is good enough for me because I still play games at 1080p because I've got a 1080p monitor. And 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and I'm pretty sure it's 3200 megahertz clock speed on the RAM. No, Ian, look at the CPU charts. It depends what you're using it for. If you were purely gaming with it, The i9 might be better, but you'd need to spend a lot more for cooling and electricity consumption. In terms of video rendering, definitely not. Well, people try to mug me when I used to work in the city. Or you'd get people threaten you and, ask for money and all that sort of stuff. And yet, some of my friends, people tried to mug. A lot of the time, it wasn't successful. Because a lot of the time, unless you were stood still somewhere, that's why bus stops are always dodgy. If you just had a brisk pace, it's generally quite hard for somebody to try and get in front of you and stop you, It's generally more dodgy if you're at a bus stop at night and it's very quiet. I don't know, you'd have to ask Skynet about that, Eric. No, they're perfectly legal to carry because you're carrying it for a pen purpose, aren't you? It's a writing implement. The law hasn't got so bad in the UK yet that you're not allowed to carry a pen. What's that slingshot, if you don't mind sharing? Is it a new slingshot? A fair bit, Ian, but not as much as I used to. So, mostly I use my PC for rendering YouTube videos, web surfing and stuff like that. And all like the YouTube type stuff. But yeah, I do play games, obviously, on it now and then. So as I was saying, that's why the 5700 XT is good enough for me. Because at 1080p, it can pretty much play everything maxed out now. And probably is quite future-proof for a while. But again, I've got no purpose of, or thoughts of upgrading to 4K anytime soon, because a lot of games still don't support it properly yet. Well, if you have a reason for carrying screwdrivers, you can carry screwdrivers. But if you were randomly walking around with just a screwdriver in your pocket, that'd be a bit weird, wouldn't it? This screen is technically 100 hertz, although I don't know how technically it is, if that makes sense, because I think there's a lot of things that won't actually go above 60 or 75 frames per second on this screen, although it's meant to technically be 100 hertz. But the 5700 XT seems to play most games in 1080p that I've tried at like 150 to 200 FPS. But again, this isn't a gaming stream. We're on about self-defense items and staying safe. Well, actually, a troubled man. Again, I'm going off topic because this isn't what the stream's meant to be about. But I found undervolting this GPU actually increases the performance and stability rather than actually overclocking it, so doing the opposite. I've been doing gaming streams before, but the only thing I don't like with gaming streams is obviously if the game crashes, even if it's like not the PC's fault, but just because of the game engine or whatever, that can mess up the streams. That's why I prefer doing webcam streams, and more people watch these. So there we go. Right, that's enough PC talk. I'm not going to be talking about the PC anymore on this stream. Yeah, a book is good because a book, obviously, if somebody tries to stab you, you could use a book as a shield, couldn't you, if it was a decent-sized book? And it's a lot harder to stab through a decent-sized book than people would think. If you've ever tried it with like an encyclopedia or a catalogue-sized book, I bet you will not be able to stab very far into it, even if you used a knife like a Fairbairn Sykes. And as well, yeah, a book's got a bit of weight to it. But you shouldn't be carrying a hammer on him randomly, should he, Ninja? Again, he's pretty lucky he got off leniently, isn't he? Because if he's carrying a hammer for no fucking reason, then, yep. Leo, that's in Weapon Collector's video where he's got, like, the Kosh kind of coin purses. Yeah, Millwall bricks. Somebody, I think, mentioned that earlier. But, yeah, there's lots of things that aren't... That's the thing, is lots of people seem to be suggesting things that are blatantly weapons, when there's lots of things, like we were saying, flashlights, torches, whatever you want to call them, and lots of everyday items that nobody would think twice about you carrying that can be quite effective if you needed to use them. I think they'd be very effective nuclear winter. And as I said, if you're somebody that has a reason for carrying a walking stick, a walking stick is a very good option. But for me, you know, I wouldn't want to walk around with a walking stick because it would seem pointless to me and quite forced. Yeah, Mike's done some videos on his glow in the dark. Yeah, it looks very good. The thing is, I wouldn't pay how much they'd want for one. But I think, you know, if you did get one, I think it would serve you very well. What I'd be interested, though, is if anybody ever finds any really strong, you know, regular umbrellas that aren't made for that kind of purpose, but are really strong. Because at Argos, we used to sell golfing umbrellas, I think they were called. And, you know, they were like really big size, tactical umbrella size things. And some of them were like polypropylene and like titanium parts. So I imagine, although they wouldn't be as good as those security umbrellas, I imagine some of them, though, would still be really robust. And a lot of them were only like 15 or 20 quid. Yeah, do you think you could get HIV or AIDS from that, Peach, if somebody slaps you with a flashlight? Because they banned them after the Dunblane school shooting, Freud. That's why. Pistols up until then were perfectly legal for civilian ownership. After that, they weren't. Right, Battle Rat, you're getting a timeout for that, because that would be a fucking acid attack, wouldn't it? And I already asked you earlier, because you said something really stupid earlier in the chat. I said, you know, you need to say what country you're in, because you were saying stuff like, oh, you know, and if you're in the UK, you are blatantly going to go to prison eventually for saying certain things. So, yeah, if you did that and you sprayed somebody in the fucking face, I'm just going to go through with what you said with drain cleaner, you could permanently blind somebody, and I think you deserve to go to prison for life for that, because how in any fucking sense of the word is spraying somebody's face with alkali or acid a good thing? It's worse, like we're saying, with pepper spray, even though the law considers it a Section 5 firearm, something that doesn't permanently damage somebody but causes them pain and disorientation, I can understand. Spraying somebody's face with fucking drain cleaner. Yep. Did you hear, speaking of that, I don't want to go into politics, but is it Joe Brand basically said that Nigel Farage should have had acid thrown on him? Not that she would do it herself or something. She said that on a comedy thing on the BBC. Loads of people complained about it, but because the BBC isn't regulated by Ofcom, it's regulated by themselves. The BBC goes, oh, it wasn't really a problem. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Joe Brand saying that, but yeah. Yeah, you can get what we were saying before, which is perfectly legal in the UK. Obviously, it's not as good as pepper spray, but that is legal here for civilian use. That dye stuff, the criminal identifier, which basically is like a really hard to wash off kind of paint type thing, where the idea is if somebody attacks you and you spray it with them, they're not going to be able to get off their skin for a couple of days. So it's quite easy for the police to find them. Well, like I was saying earlier in the stream, David, you know, like I said, people attempted to mug me and stuff like that when I used to work in the city, which was the fucking reason I bought the stab vest in the first place. Because before that, I didn't have any inclination for it. But once you get people pulling knives on you, you know, trying to take a swing for you because you won't give them money for heroin or whatever, you know, that's when I ended up getting more inclined to think, maybe I do need something. But luckily, I don't. Yeah, Farb gel, that's it. Thank you, Peach. But luckily, you know, I was saying with my current job, it's in a nice place and I don't have to put up with that. I drive my car to work. So, you know, I don't have to put up with waiting in a dingy bus stop down an alleyway, you know. Yeah, but exactly, Glow in the Dark. It's a sensible bit of advice, isn't it? Because if you run for it, you're not going to get in trouble and you're hopefully not going to get injured. Whereas if you ended up getting in a fight, you know, you may end up getting an injury that takes months to heal or would never heal properly, even if you assume you don't get killed in it or whatever. And then you could even potentially get in trouble yourself, couldn't you? If you used unreasonable force, or then somebody tries to sue you afterwards for like whatever. That's cool. Is that like the WZ-93 style one, Freud? Like the camo kind of one, which is like the military one with the Kevlar bits and the plates. Sadly, I'm not going to be on very much longer. I might go on for a bit longer though, because this has been a good stream. We've had a lot of people on, except for the people, saying edgy stuff on purpose. Like, I think Freud's right. You might be trying to be edgy on purpose, but still, the entire. We're not talking about gas masks on the stream. We're talking, as the title suggests, about sort of legal self-defense items. Legal being the important word. Right, night if you're off, Congo. No, Freud, you were saying when that guy was saying about spraying somebody with acid, that you were saying he was probably trying to be edgy, and I think you're right. Yeah, exactly, UK survivalist. Very good points. And that's what I was trying to bring up. That if you have a legitimate reason for something, it makes a lot more sense. Because we've had a lot of people in the chat doing the thing of, can I just carry, a machete, or can I just carry a hammer? And there's no reason to be carrying those things on there normally, on you, is there? But again, if you have a bike and you have a bike repair kit that happens to have spanners and things like that in them, again, you've got a reason for having them on you. Yeah, Mike's video is very good, isn't it, on all that sort of stuff, glow in the dark. I really like his video on that. And again, it's all down to context, isn't it? Because a lot of it really does depend on what your situation is. There's not really one right answer for a lot of people. Yeah, exactly. If you have a dog on a lead, somebody's probably less likely to attack you in the first place. Dogs are also very good for home security, because most of my friends that have got dogs, if I go to visit them, the dog is always barking before I've got anywhere close to knocking on the door or anything like that. And, if you attack the owner, I imagine most dogs would go for you. And a lot of dogs, even ones that aren't really bred to be, too predatory, even though I know dogs as a species, as an animal, like predators, because they're, carnivores. But, you know what I mean? Even the dogs that aren't bred for sort of taking down big animals, they've still got the big canine sort of incisor teeth, haven't they? So you wouldn't want to be bitten and mauled by one. What's a pocket staff? I'm not sure I've heard of that. In terms of like staffs and walking sticks and all those are legal. If it's anything that's like an expandable baton, then it wouldn't be, as far as I'm aware. There's a Discord for Patreon supporters and people who do super chats, but there's not like a public Discord kind of thing. Exactly, Rich. I was going to bring that up because I've done a video on that, and I think Mike has as well. But good on you for mentioning that. But that was the thing. What I'd often do when I used to work in the city, because if you went to the main bus station, like how it would work is it was an outdoor bus station, and the buses would be like little shelters in a row, and it was quite a dingy area. So what I'd do, but it was kind of like on the grid. So if I was waiting at the bus station and I saw somebody approaching who looked a bit dodgy, what I'd do is I'd start walking, and then I'd walk around in a circle. That way, if it was like one of the heroin addicts who starts getting aggressive with people for money, you could kind of, if he was coming this way, you could go that way, and then you could loop back round while he carried on going round, like bothering the people further up. Again, letter openers. Do you have a reason for carrying a letter opener on you? Because again, a letter opener is fine in your house, and it'd be fine on your desk or something like that. But I don't think most people walk around expecting to receive letters. Exactly what Glow in the Dark just said. On your desk, perfect. Completely fine. But why would you be carrying a letter opener in the street? I don't know UK survivors because there's a lot of stuff like that that seems to be very much down to interpretation. Personally, I wouldn't carry a monkey fist on me, but I don't think anything in the law currently says it's legal, but it probably depends what they thought your intent was with one. That was a troll comment, whoever allowed that comment through. Bushido is somebody who does bullshit martial arts. So what he was trying to say is that I'm one of those fake martial arts people. Even though, like I said, I did a couple of years of judo and I would never want to use martial arts on people. 13 o'clock podcast, I'll give them a shout out because I support them on Patreon. They did an episode recently on Bushido, which is really interesting, it's all about some of the crazy people that, did all the weird martial arts things, like started the crazes that were completely false, and tried to make these quick fix, like fake martial arts they'd sell to people that, you can do this move and it will kill somebody instantly. Yep, I've got one on right now, glow in the dark, because I generally always wear divers watches. Now, just because they're really robust and I never worry about breaking them. But yeah, the thing is, a diver's watch, like you said, pretty much all just steel and like a mineral glass construction or sapphire glass construction. If somebody smacked you with that, it's pretty much the same as hitting you with a metal weight. So yeah, good point. I don't listen to too many podcasts. 13 o'clock's on the only podcast I regularly listen to. There's lots of other YouTube channels I listen to, but again, that's going off topic. Let me look up what a pocket staff is then, John's car hunting, because I don't actually know off the top of my head. So if I kind of get an idea what you're talking about, I might be able to... I'd think that would be considered an extendable baton in the UK by the look of it. So it's like a bow staff. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend an extendable staff because that does really seem to be, like a telescopic staff does seem to be where they do you under a baton law for it. Who's swearing at who? Sounds like there's a bit of a chat war going on up there, and I don't know who started it. This is the problem. Oh, I think they've mentioned them on 13 o'clock before, Ian, so I'll check that out at some point. Well, Freud, if you're in a country where getting a pistol's legal, then go for it. Why not? But, in the UK, you can't get a pistol. But... yeah, that's what I was thinking, glow in the dark, when I was looking at it, because it seemed to me, yeah, like you could very easily say it's a concealable, extendable baton, couldn't you, looking at it? Right, I'm going to start issuing timeouts to the people putting really fucking weird comments in this now because they're just trying to derail the stream. And again, this is not a stream talking about gas masks. So stop asking about gas masks on this stream. I'm going to go off probably in 10 minutes anyway when it gets to the hour-and-a-half mark. But I'm just saying don't ruin the stream for everybody else. Because, yeah, thanks, Mike. And, yeah, Northern Ireland, you are actually allowed pistols, aren't you, Freud? But it's strange, isn't it? Because it's more. Sorry, I've just seen something in the background that's really annoying me. The GP5 is blocking the picture of the GP5 on there. So let me just adjust that. There we go. That was irritating me on the webcam. Well, as we were saying before, Ian, a filter is heavy enough that if you had a gas mask filter, again, I don't know in the UK or whatever why you'd ever EDC a gas mask, but yeah, they're solid lumps of metal or plastic pretty much. I mean, I know they're hollowed, but they're filled pretty much to the brim. But unless you're in a country like Israel where everybody's issued gas masks, I don't think you'd have. It'd be a bit strange, wouldn't it, if you're carrying around a gas mask and filter on you and then you started hitting people with the filter. What country is that in Soviet Union? Oh, Australia. I was going to say it's perfectly legal to own them here still. It depends on the type of phone, Samit, because, I mean, some phones are going to break. My phone, I've dropped it loads of times in its protective case and it's never broken, but if somebody's trying to mug you, they'd probably be quite glad if you were chucking your phone at them. But I suppose if it was a do or die situation, then bludgeoning somebody with your phone, if you had no other option, might work. Yeah, what you're on about, Richard, is the exact thing Tom was going on about in the 13 o'clock episode, where he was saying that, you know, you're actually endangering people if you do that, because you're going to get somebody in a situation where they could get injured or killed because they actually think that, you know, by knowing some of this martial arts stuff, they essentially get superpowers, especially when it's the really dodgy martial arts stuff that doesn't have a lot of validity to it, because that was the thing they were covering in the episode, that, you know, because they were saying, like, obviously MMA fighting kind of stuff, you know, you could really beat somebody up with that. And lots of other martial arts will work on people who don't really know how to fight all that well, or that, you know, also aren't trained in martial arts. But, you know, when you have these kind of pseudoscience martial arts, you know, of the chi energy and all this stuff, especially if people end up believing it, they could really get themselves into a situation where, yeah, they do get beaten up or killed because they think they can take on somebody and they have the confidence, you know, but they don't actually have the skill, or, you know, the odds are just too stacked against them. Yeah, I used to do judo when I was a lot younger, David. I did come third in like an Oxfordshire championship for it at one point, but that wasn't with all that many people in it, so it's not that impressive. I didn't get much beyond yellow belt, I don't think. I can't even remember now. It's been so many years ago. But the thing is, the problem I had with judo is, like what Mike said, I always felt a bit uncomfortable doing it with a lot of people you didn't know, that kind of thing. And it was also that it was spending time up when I wanted to do, you know, times on the evenings to do homework and, you know, see my friends and stuff like that. I've been on 1 hour and 23 minutes. So I'll go for at least an hour and a half. If the chat's still good at that point, I might go on a bit longer. Are you on Twitch tonight, Mike? Because I'm quite enjoying the stream, other than the people who are just starting a fucking comment argument for some reason. Somebody else causing trouble there. Goodbye. Yeah, I'm assuming we've just had a load of trolls come on like they like to do, but whatever. As I said, I think the body armor sometimes attracts them, because I've noticed the amount of videos where you talk about body armor or self-defense when you get all the people coming on saying, you know, oh, you're being paranoid, all this sort of stuff, or that, you know, you want to kill somebody because you're wearing body armor. Yeah, UK Survivor, so I have something similar. I rarely take this out of the house, actually. I've had it a couple of times and I've just gone, like, hiking and stuff, but this is the one I just use as the canteen next to my bed. I like metal bottles because, like, with metal and glass bottles, they don't leach plastics, do they, into the water? What type, Freud? The old one or the new ones? What's that, Mike? Did you see this? Glow in the dark bus driver. Oh, what was that? Glow in the dark was saying that. I missed that comment. If it was 1940, you could maybe EDC a gas mask. In the machine gunner's book, one in a coffee tin was used as a weapon. Oh, that's interesting. But yeah, obviously in like the 40s in Britain, obviously people had to carry their gas mask. You could be fined for not having it on you, couldn't you? Because for all the gas drills and everything. Yeah, exactly. There's certain places, like we're saying, it's situational, isn't it? Where if you're out and about doing something and you've got a use for it, then it's good. But yeah, speaking of bike jackets, Jack, Richard had some really good ideas because he was saying there's certain like good quality motocross ones that are literally like riot armor. That, not like they'd be knife proof or anything like that, but they'd certainly be very good against somebody hitting you with like a bat or something. Oh, it's quite a modern one then, is it, Freud? So is it like one of the SCBA armors, or whatever they call it? Not SCBA armor, or what's the name of it? Is it ACBA armor? It's the one we were talking about in the stream. ECBA armor, that's it. ECBA armor. If you Google ECBA body armor and look on images, is it those? I mean, some of them are going to be in MTP, some are going to be Woodland DPM, some are going to be Desert. But is it that kind of thing, the ECBA? Yeah, like I said, Mike, you and Rich and Peach go completely ahead with it because, as I said, annoyingly on this stream it's been quite good, but then there's been a lot of people obviously coming on to cause trouble for some reason. I think there's some people, Rigu, that are just like very horrible people that, are like, where they think disfiguring people makes them strong or something. I don't know. All right, cool, Freud. So yeah, you've ID'd it then. So it's one of the ECBA vests. I want to get an ECBA vest at some point just for like a collector's purpose. But sadly, it's one of those things where a lot of the time they're very overpriced when people are selling them secondhand. So if you get lucky for like £40 to £50, you'll find one with the Kevlar and the plates in it. But often, they end up being like £30 for the carrier alone, then like another £20 to £30 for the vests, and then like another £40 to £50 for the plates. Just on eBay, John's car hunting, the police and everybody sell them as surplus after a couple of years because under the sort of laws of like the use by dates on Kevlar, they have to sell it on or, dispose of it. They can't keep using it. So they sell it really cheap when they're done with it, and it's still in like grade A perfect condition. Yeah, exactly, Jack. So yeah, a good motorcycle vest would certainly work for that. That riot armor up there, a lot of people keep mistaking for a motorcycle jacket, but it is a very similar kind of thing. And again, the whole point is, yeah, it stops you getting broken bones and like the skin scraped off and everything from impacts. That's interesting. Didn't know about those, David. I mean, I know you can get some sort of baseball caps that have like the metal buckle at the back. But I said you can get bump caps, which are really good because as a defensive thing, if somebody hits you in the head where you've got the bump cap on, that's going to take a lot more of the force than if you didn't have a hat on. It might be, Ian, because it wasn't me that timed you out. It was one of the mods, but it might have been just because you ended up saying something that seemed a bit weird when a load of the troll comments were coming on. I wouldn't do a house tour video. I've done a room tour video before. Because obviously you're going into other people's rooms in a house, aren't you? Which is breaking the privacy. I've got a video coming up, though, in a couple of weeks, which is how I store all my surplus sort of stuff. And it's showing, you know, all the different rooms in the house where stuff's piled up because there's not enough room for anything. That's all right, Ian. Like I said, I don't think I blocked you or anything or timed you out. I think it was one of the mods. But again, just saying, at the moment, apologies, obviously, there was a load of people that were coming on and trying to cause trouble. So I think that's why a load of timeouts just ended up getting handed out at once. No, I've never done any military service, and I've never claimed I have. I find a lot of that stuff interesting, but I would never do stolen valor bullshit and say, yes, I have done military service when I obviously haven't. You can get a lot of Eastern Bloc stuff pretty cheap on eBay, Freud. We're going off topic now, but as the stream's wrapping up, that's all right. Let's just talk about whatever. Yeah, in terms of Eastern Bloc stuff, like those Polish helmets I was showing recently, you can get a lot of them for like £12 at the moment on UK eBay. What's the cool hat, Jasmine? Is that the Polish firefighter's helmet? Was this the cool hat? This one's still in this room because I haven't done a video on it yet with the thing in it. I'm medically unfit to serve, Ian, so even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Yeah, the Yugo steel helmets are really good. The Yugo, I've got an Yugo M5983 or whatever it is, and that's a really nice steel pot helmet. That's all right, Ian. Nothing I can do about it, but it was one of those things when I was a lot younger. I was sort of interested in it, and then obviously, when you end up growing up and finding out you end up having chronic illnesses, it sort of fucks that up. But oh well. Well, if you were carrying a knife on you for a legal reason beforehand, I'd imagine you could get away with stabbing somebody robbing you at gunpoint, because technically you're doing a lesser thing, aren't you? DevTac. Okay, let me look that up. That's an interest. It looks almost very cyberpunky. That's weird. It's quite cool looking, but it looks very video gamey, doesn't it? Or a bit sort of stormtroopery from Star Wars or something. Yeah, when I was a lot younger, Jack, we had some random bloke, I won't say too much about this, come out of his house and attack somebody we knew with a bat. And that was quite, I wouldn't say like traumatizing, but it was one of those things for ages I didn't want to go out, especially because the bloke, you know, the police interviewed him and all that, and I think they cautioned him and all that, but it was one of those things where it happened, if it happens quite close to you, it can, you know, make stuff seem like, oh, I don't want to go out, you know. When you say camp pattern, do you mean camo pattern, Ian? One of my favorite. Oh yeah, you mean camo? One of my favorite camo patterns is Soviet SS Lito. If you look that up, I'll write how it's spelled in the chat. It's called SS Lito or Partisan Summer. Normally, if you look that up, it's basically where the Soviets took one of the German oak leaf camos from World War II and changed the colors and made it more effective. But it's one of those patterns that seems to work in a lot of environments, and I think it's quite a cool looking camo. You just doing Red Dead again tonight, Mike? Sorry, Peach, I might have missed what you said somewhere there. Let me go up a bit. Saw you saying I can't do the stuff. When I saw some GBH, I didn't want to go back around the park. Was that park? Or park? Oh, so did you like witness somebody getting attacked, and then obviously it made you a bit wary about going into that place or whatever? What, as in just like the impact force of him getting hit dropped him, glow in the dark? At the moment, I've been playing a lot of the Stalker series again. I finished playing Shadow of Chernobyl again the other day. I've been playing a bit of Hearts of Iron 3. I started Resident Evil 7 for the first time recently. It really depends what kind of flak vest it is, UK Survivalist, because some nations' flak jackets are essentially just Kevlar vests, but others could be earlier ballistic nylon ones, and while they still give you much better protection than nothing, ballistic nylon isn't as good as Kevlar. No, I've got The Witcher 3 on Steam, and I've never got around to playing it yet. I ought to really install it on this PC now I've got a PC that would run it well. The Witcher 2 I nearly finished and didn't manage, because I think it was when I lost a load of data on my PC at the time. But the Witcher series I don't mind. I used to play War Thunder, I don't play it anymore. Yeah, what Guy says, the thing is with flak jackets is obviously early flak jackets were literally ballistic nylon, and I think there were even flak jackets before that, which were just kind of some sort of padding wad kind of material in them. Because again, the name flak jacket, it was to protect the wearer from shrapnel, as in flak, as in German anti-aircraft guns in World War II. So then you had like the US Vietnam War era flak jackets, the green ones, which were ballistic nylon. The US also had flak jackets later on in the Korean War. I don't know if they were ballistic nylon or if they were something not as good as ballistic nylon. But then, yeah, the British Northern Ireland were vests were very similar to the American flak jackets, which was ballistic nylon. But then when Kevlar came along, it was pretty much used instead, because a thinner piece of Kevlar is like more effective than, you know, ballistic nylon that's like 3 or 4 times the thickness, just because Kevlar is much stronger than ballistic nylon. Right, so you're also spamming the same comment somebody else was spamming, so goodbye. Anthem, no, I've not played Anthem. Yeah, I reckon you're right, Glow in the Dark. Level 2 or 3A would be fine for most things, wouldn't it? Because that's what I've been saying sometimes when I was having conversations with people, is that where I've got the Osprey vest, although I've not got a proper trauma plate in it, I've got something in it at the moment just to simulate the weight of having a trauma plate in it. And it does restrict your movement a lot. Not necessarily even with the weight, but just like the size of it being there and all that. So I would much rather have a vest on like this if I had to be going out and about doing something than, you know, gearing up with a load more bigger vests on, which, while they give you better protection, end up weighing a lot more. You're less comfortable, you know, you run your energy down faster. But yeah, for the people interested, you know, these aren't very thick, these vests, but it's still enough to stop 9mm and stuff like that. These are the ones rated to 9mm, 45 ACP, those kind of vests. Quite a lot of revolver rounds. Again, high pressure load Magnum rounds would go through those vests, and they certainly wouldn't stop rifle rounds, other than things like 22 long rifle. But, you know, they are designed to protect cops from people shooting them with handguns or trying to stab them with knives. No, I'm certainly not a prepper. I just collect military history things because I find it interesting. Yeah, there's also things, Guy, that one of my Russian subscribers was telling me that was really interesting, that lots of nations, and I think the Soviet Union found this, is in some of the older bulletproof vests, they put lots of very small titanium plates in. So the issue was that while the titanium plate would physically stop the bullet, because the titanium plate was small, the bullet would actually push the titanium plate into the body and cause injuries from that reason. What do you mean by weird stuff? Yeah, I'd say that's a good way of summing it up, Ian. I'm not a prepper, but I'm more prepared than an average person, I guess. But well, by prions, do you mean like the brain disease kind of things? I don't really know much about them. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if I've got any really weird military gas masks. Like, you know, ones that are just bizarre. But off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything. I'm sure it's one of those things where as soon as the stream ends, I'll think, of course, I've got that thing. But when you say Victorious Classic Victorinox, yes, you can carry something like this in public. Again, if you threatened somebody with it or did lots of other things, then it would become illegal. But there isn't such a mask as that, a troubled man. People keep saying the pH gas hood is that, but it's not. pH was for phenyl hexa something or other it was called, and it has nothing to do with urine. It's literally an industrial chemical that was used because it neutralized chlorine and phosgene. Yeah, they're pretty weird, but they're not technically military. They're civil. That one and that one. They're Soviet PTM-1 Fallout hoods, like the one on the picture there. Although my head's in the way. But yeah, the one that the woman's got on in the middle. The Mark 6, as gets asked every stream, is pretty shit. If you watch videos of the Mark 6, not the Mark 6A, because they use Kevlar in that, but the standard Mark 6 helmet, if you watch videos of Americans shooting it, and they shoot loads of steel pot helmets as well, the Mark 6 is like one of the worst performing helmets in any of the tests, despite the fact that, you know, they sometimes test them against, like, the cheapest mass-produced communist helmets that you can think of, and a lot of them will stop 9mm and 45, at least for 1 or 2 shots from the front at 10 yards. But some of these 9mm will go through the front, through the styrofoam head, and out the back of the Mark 6 helmets. The closest mask I've got to the Pyro's one is the British C7, and again, it doesn't look that similar, because Pyro's mask isn't a real mask, but it's the only one I think I've got where, like, a lot of the bits are in the same place. Yeah, well, chainmail does work for stab protection. Lots of butchers and things like that use chainmail so they can't accidentally slice themselves. And an interesting thing I've seen pictures of is in Germany, some of the armed police units, when they raid buildings, they're wearing all like the police Kevlar stuff like I was wearing earlier in the stream, but they're actually wearing like a chainmail vest over it in case somebody comes at them with like a machete or a knife. So rather than having, you know, the vests that are combined stab and Kevlar, they've got like a Kevlar 3A vest on that's just a pure Kevlar 3A vest, and then they've just got some like a proper old-fashioned chainmail kind of thing on top, so if anybody came at them with a machete or, you know, a load of knives, they wouldn't get through the chainmail. As far as I could tell, Ian, they were genuine Mark 6s. But the problem with the Mark 6, obviously, was it was ballistic nylon, not a Kevlar filler. And again, they replaced the Mark 6 with the Mark 6A at one point because that actually had Kevlar and not ballistic nylon. But if you compare ballistic nylon armor vests, like the old flak jackets and the old, I think Smith & Wesson or one of those companies did a big giant blue vest, was made of ballistic nylon. If you compare those to the Mark 6, they all seem to be pretty similar in terms of what gets through and what doesn't. No idea. What do you mean in terms of buying it on the surplus market? Let's have a look on eBay. Mark 6 helmets are normally like 30 quid on eBay. Let's see how much a Mark 6A is. I don't actually have a Mark 6A. There's one pre-owned at the moment with bids on that's only £2. One that's £34.99. One that's £15. 20 odd quid to 30 odd quid. But yeah. The Mark 6As are the ones that are black, not olive green. And that was to indicate that it was the Kevlar model, not the ballistic nylon model. Let me look that up, glow in the dark, because I don't actually know what that one is. Oh, it's the one like I've got, but the one I've got isn't marked Aegis. It's marked Commando. But they're basically the US Pascut copies, aren't they? The US M88 copies. And they're very good helmets. It's the ones that the US has been using for years and just kind of improving over the years. And even their modern thermoplastic helmets are essentially the same helmet design, just with thermoplastic, not Kevlar. But yeah, that's the funny thing is, yeah, in the UK, if you were buying surplus helmets, British Mark 6, Mark 6A, Mark 7 helmets are all inferior in terms of ballistic protection than the UK Armed Police helmets. But anyway, I've been doing this stream for an hour and 46 minutes, so it's been a pretty long stream. Mike will be on Twitch fairly soon. So thanks to everybody who's been being sensible in the comments, because it's been interesting chatting with a lot of people on today, and it's been quite a busy stream. So thanks for that. Obviously, annoyingly, there was a bit of a trolling raid at some point for some reason, where there were lots of copy and pasted comments, or like people making the same comments over and over and over again. Okay, you'll be on 10:15. I'll certainly catch you then. But yeah, thanks to the mods. Thanks to everybody who's been sensible. And it's been, yeah, quite an enjoyable stream. So I'll be streaming tomorrow, but it'll probably be earlier in the day rather than the evening tomorrow. So see you then. Goodbye.